You sit there and you sit there and you thump your Bible and you say your prayers and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about your John 3:16. YWC Football Talk, episode 316 says, I just whipped your ass. As BigRat and I are here, week 5, Miami, New England. Not the sexiest game on paper, but we're still going to talk about it. Plus the entire Sunday slate and Monday. No Thursday, though, because that happened last night and I lost on the Buccaneers. So what are you going to do?
I was on the Falcons, so a little bit of joy from last Thursday night, if I do say so myself.
I just saw it as like the whole like weird underdog perspective where I was just like, that doesn't make like, why were they plus 2.5 coming off what they did? But I was just glad we got a good game. That's all I cared about at the end of the day.
Look,
and I did great in fantasy too. Shout out Baker Mayfield and Drake London and Mike Evans.
I got lucky. I mean, they spiked the ball with like 1 second left and Bucky Irving fumbled, but that's life. I've had many more go against me than I have had go for me, so I'll take it.
Well, absolutely. But this week, first of 4 international games in the NFL, starting off with Danny's Jets traveling over to take on the undefeated Vikings. Our Jets pick last week backfired, but something about this week is telling me to take them. You know, this is the game that what Minnesota did last week. I know they got off to a great start against Green Bay, ultimately won and went 4-0, but something about this game kind of screams not so much Jets get right, but more or less seeing like, hey, which Jets team is going to show up and that the better Jets team shows up.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because they're coming off a bad loss. It's a neutral field.
To a bad quarterback who's had a terrible stat line.
They probably like they're probably going to have like a lot of bounce back performances this year because I don't see this being a dominant. We talked about this in the previous show. I don't see them being like a 13 or 14 win team. Yeah, it's going to go up and down and up and down and up and down. And if they hit their ceiling, it'll probably be as like a 10-7 team that loses a lot of games. So they're going to get used to this. I have a feeling about that too. The trends kind of prevent me from picking them because favorites just dominate in London for whatever reason. Like the Vegas favorite on the spread is like 34-10. It's something ridiculous. Like upsets don't usually happen in London. Now, this is a very short favorite. You know, this is not like the spirit of that stat or like teams that are like 6-point favorites, you know, like when the Ravens played the Titans last year or 2 years ago. I forget when that was. Might have been last year, something like that. Anyways, I feel like that's the spirit of that stat. So, this game doesn't necessarily apply. It's kind of a coin flip game, can go either way. I'm going to lean Vikings because of that stat and because they have the better coaching staff. And when you travel internationally, having the better coaching staff matters. But it wouldn't shock me at all if the Jets give the Vikings their first loss and it's a big story and everyone overrates them again going into Monday Night Football. Least surprising thing in the world.
And a certain someone's in your DMs barking at you and calling you Big Mouse instead of Big Rat. Yes, he told me about that. The one Jet player I'm going to say is a bit of an X factor because I was listening to Paul Allen earlier this week. He was on with Florio. Obviously, Paul Allen, voice of the Minnesota Vikings. Tight ends have had good performances against the Vikings this year. So if you're looking for a player to lean on, I'd go Tyler Conklin and have a good game for the Jets this week.
I'm starting. I'm a Mark Andrews fantasy owner. One of the many of us out there that are disgruntled and begrudging. I'm benching Mark Andrews for Tyler Conklin this week. And so sure enough, Andrews will have like 6 for 90 and a touchdown.
I'm gonna go with this though. I can see them winning, but I could see. You know how last week we said that 2.5 is a weird line. I'm gonna go with this. I think the Vikings do pull out the win. It wouldn't shock me to see the Jets win, but I think the Jets cover the 2.5.
Yeah, I think they win by like 2 or by 1, trading field goals at the end. Yeah,
kind of like the Saints-Falcons game last week, which both of us were on the Falcons for. I was gonna save this till the end, but let's do it. Let's rip off the Band-Aid as 1-3, 1-3, New England versus Miami. It's such a weird game because last week you had New England who was on the opposite end of a get-right game for San Francisco. That's what that was. San Francisco is just the better team. And then you have your side in Miami where it's just no one knows what's going on. And then now it's just this, they're coming together. And honestly, for two teams where it's like one's bad on purpose and one's bad on accident, I don't know where to lean for this game because you can see, you know what, not Miami getting right, but you can see Miami pulling out the win because they do have the better roster on paper. Raheem Mostert's coming back. But then there's that New England side where everyone, you know, it kind of like doubts them. And it's like, hey, they pull off this miraculous win. And then next week, Houston comes in and runs their show. The other thing too is just obviously offensive line help. David Andrews, we don't know if he's done for the season yet or not with the shoulder injury. Caden Wallace put on IR today with a knee, so it's not going to be a fun game to watch. And I honestly want to let you vent first before I make a pick.
If the Dolphins play like they've played the last 2 weeks, they can't beat anybody. Anybody. That is the worst team in football, what they've done the last 2 weeks. They cannot score. They cannot get in the red zone. Even when they get in the red zone, they have a horrible red zone conversion rate lately. They have a terrible in short yardage, have been for years, ever since even when Tua was there. The argument for the Dolphins winning this game is they're going to play differently. It's the guys coming back from injury are going to make a big difference, and it's going to be a different team, and you're not going to see the same product that you saw the last 2 weeks. If they play like they did the last 2 weeks, they will lose. I don't care how bad New England is. Like, their defense is more than good enough. Jacoby won't turn it over. We're liable to turn it over. Jacoby is less likely to turn it over. So that'll give New England, a higher chance to not have the back-breaking pick six, the strip sack fumble, which could ultimately decide this game, whichever team does that.
Like what happened last week, but that was just a beautiful play by Fred Warner.
Yes, exactly. Like, that's not typical. Like, Jacoby has...
That was an all-pro middle linebacker.
And historically, for the viewers that don't know, Jacoby Brissett is like top 5 in NFL history in interception rate. Something ridiculous. Like, the dude never throws picks, ever. Like, he's just not a turnover guy. So if the Dolphins play like they did the last 2 weeks, they will lose. They cannot beat anyone playing like that. Anyone. They can't. They are so – what they did on Monday was so – it was sad. Like, they coached like a team that was afraid, that knew that they couldn't move the ball doing things the normal way. So they tried – like, here's the thing. Like, Dolphin fans have been critical of McDaniel. And look, it is deserved when the product is this bad without your quarterback, because – Kevin O'Connell has lost quarterbacks and has done a hell of a lot better job with supposedly less receiving talent than what we have. As good as Jefferson is, he was hurt some of those games last year when they had Josh Dobbs. Yeah, and we have supposedly the number 1 player in football as voted by the players, on top of Achane, on top of Jalen Waddle. So, like, Kevin O'Connell did a better job with backup quarterbacks. Sean McVay has done a better job with backup quarterbacks. Matt LaFleur has done a better job with backup quarterbacks. And McDaniel is supposed to be in that tier. Some people even think he's the best, because, I mean, if Tua is going to get no credit for how good the offense has been the last 2 years, then you must think McDaniel's this offensive savant that just mastered offensive football. And so he certainly deserves criticism. But what happened on Monday was not really what people were thinking. Like, the Seahawks game, that was very much a case of they tried to run the Tua offense with Skylar Thompson. He held onto the ball forever. He got sacked 6 times. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't complete a pass. It was awful. That's not what happened on Monday, though. They were a run-heavy team. They ran it 13 times in the first half to 6 throws. Every throw they did was at or behind the line of scrimmage. It was very much, Tyler Huntley just got here. We know he doesn't know the playbook, so we're just gonna throw screen passes to Waddle, Achane, and Tyreek and hope that one of them breaks it for a big play. They played like cowards. Like, look, on one hand, is it understandable that your quarterback doesn't know the playbook, so you want to really restrict the offense? I get that. But they needed to take just a few more chances than they did. Like, the few times that they did target Tyreek Hill down the field, Tyreek was open. Huntley missed the throw. It's hard to throw to Tyreek Hill in stride. Like, you have to practice with that guy consistently to get the timing down on where you throw versus where his feet are going to be at, what landmark and yard marker he's going to be at. That's something you have to practice, because he moves so fast. He moves faster than every other receiver in the NFL. So it's understandable. But, maybe if they did that 6 times instead of 3 times, maybe one of those 6 would have hit. And that would have had a much better chance of scoring, because the Titans were all over their perimeter game. All the outside runs were terrible. All the screens went for no gains. Achane had 10 carries for 15 yards. The outside zone stuff has not worked. And I know that's the identity of the Kyle Shanahan scheme. It's the identity of the Mike McDaniel scheme and the Gary Kubiak scheme and the Mike Shanahan. Like, all these people, they love their outside zone. It has not worked this year. It's been bad all year long. Like, the few success they've had is actually running between the tackles, which is very few of the runs they do, because that's not what the identity of the team is. And that's where I think you can criticize McDaniel for being so stubborn in the run game, not really in the pass game, because the pass game was super conservative. They didn't run the same offense they ran with Tua on Monday. But the run game, it's like stubborn. It's like this Achane outside zone play that we've practiced 100 times, as long as the offensive linemen hit their blocks, we're going to break off a big run. But it never worked once. The Titans were all over it. And when your quarterback is limited, the Titans are not respecting a lot of the deep shots in the passing game the same way. So that's something that he would need to fix going into this game. But they need to play differently. Now, despite all that rant, why are they going to be a different team this weekend? Odell Beckham's coming back. It's all but confirmed. Like McDaniel said, he'll be on a pitch count, but here's the secret. Like all their other receivers suck after Hill and Waddle, including the tight ends. They have no choice but to throw him out there, give him a few targets, and pray that he can do something. Raheem Mostert's going to come back. He hasn't played since the opener. I do think that's a big deal because I think what a lot of Dolphin fans were listening to a lot of the Dolphins
comments. He also had a big game last year too against New England, I believe.
He did. He also when they played really well at Buffalo in 2022 before the playoff game in the regular season Saturday night, the game I've ranted about in the previous show with you guys for years. Like people say the Dolphins don't play well in the cold. They play great in the cold that game, but they get no credit for it.
The game-winning field goal by Bass, no?
32-29 was the final.
I had the over in that game. I bet the over.
The Dolphins had like an 8-point lead in the fourth quarter. Like they were more than good enough to win that game. Raheem Mostert was a monster in that game, and Raheem Mostert did not play in the Bills' loss last year, Week 18, where they lost the division. Raheem Mostert and Jalen Waddle both didn't play in that game. So Raheem Mostert is maybe he's older. Maybe, yes, Devon Achane is the future, and Raheem Mostert needs to take a step back despite having a great year last year. But one thing a lot of Dolphin fans were complaining about, people like, aside from like the Tua stuff and the McDaniel play calling complaints, a lot of people are just complaining that this team looks like it has no leadership. Like, who is the guy that is stepping up that is going to say, you know what, fuck that Tua's down. Like, let's just go make a play. And all the receivers, like Hill and Waddle, they both seemed in their heads. They both made business decisions. They were both complaining on the sideline. They weren't extending out for catches. They very much played like guys that thought, well, Tua's not here. I'm not going to risk getting hit over the middle by a linebacker when I think our offense is going to struggle anyways. It was terrible. So there's no leadership. Where is the leadership if if Tua's not playing and it's not in the receivers and it's not in Achane? And I think the answer to that question is Mostert. Mostert is this team's leader, like their heart and soul. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Raheem Mostert, like I know New England is a good defense, but if Raheem Mostert can somehow have like some sort of like 80 to 90 yard game this weekend, and he's kind of the one that kind of steps up and rises through the adversity. Teron Armstead, their other leader, he was also out on Monday Night Football with a concussion. Like I talked about on your show last week. It's kind of hilarious that the Dolphins had two other players with concussions, Teron Armstead and Kendall Fuller. They each missed one game. They're both going to play this weekend. They were full participants in practice all week, and no one says a damn thing. Like even, and I'm not just criticizing national media. I'm criticizing Dolphins media too. No one cares. No one cares at all. But Tua gets concussed and he has to go on IR because he's so high profile that no one would stand us rushing him back in the game. So Teron Armstead, another one of our leaders. So Armstead and Mostert are kind of the leaders of this offense now that Tua's not here. Neither of them played on Monday. The offense looked like they quit. They looked like a bunch of people that were just playing for themselves and not playing for the team. So the hope is those guys coming back, Huntley being more acclimated in the system gives them a chance. I think I might have mentioned this stat last week. I don't remember. Malik Willis, when he had that game with the Packers, the game that his first start, he had
the Colts game, right?
Yes, he had been there for 19 days. 19 days. Huntley on Monday had been there for 14 days. So people compare it, but it's still not quite the same. Like Malik Willis got like an extra 5 days than Huntley did if we're comparing 1-to-1. Now, this Sunday, Huntley will have gotten 20 days. 20 days, he's on the roster as of this Sunday against the Patriots. Malik Willis got 19 days before his first start with the Colts. So if you wanted to make an argument defending Huntley, it would be that now it's more of a fair comparison to the Malik Willis argument by what we'll see this Sunday. And Huntley did show some stuff with his legs. I thought he made the offensive line look worse. Like, really, like, more and more, like, yes, like, I guess some Dolphin fans might be victory lapping too hard on how much the team needs Tua when you all thought we didn't. But more than anything, like, these other quarterbacks make the O-line look so bad every week. The lack of the inability to get the ball out in less than 2.5 seconds, like, exposes everybody. It makes everybody look worse. And Huntley might be better than Skylar Thompson in that regard because Skylar got sacked 6 times, but Huntley still makes the offensive line look worse than it is. So the thesis is you have Mostert gaining 80 yards on the ground. You have Armstead with better pass protection. Odell Beckham comes in and gives you 40 yards out of nowhere because, God damn it, that would be a big deal because you need that right now. And then when Huntley targets Tyreek Hill down the field, he was 0 for 3 on Monday Night Football. All 3 of those plays, any of those connect, it's probably a 60-yard touchdown. If one of those hits, if we go from 0 for 3 to 1 for 4, that's kind of the argument for how they would play better on offense this week. But they're going to have to, because if they don't, they're screwed. The defense has been fine. Like, their DVOA metrics aren't good, but it's really what it is. This happened in the Seahawks game, and it happened in the Titans game too. Late in the fourth quarter, after the offense kept going 3 and out, 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 the defense gives up like one 80-yard touchdown drive at the very end of the game. And it like messes up the full game stats. That happened in the Seattle game. It happened in the Titans game too. The Titans game also required like an onside kick short field disaster, but you get the point.
Yeah.
I think the defense, they're number 1 in the NFL in third down defense right now. Like, the defense has actually been solid. Like, their run defense in the first 3 quarters has been very, very strong. Fourth quarter of the Seahawks game, Charbonnet gets like 60 yards rushing on one drive. Tony Pollard got a bunch of yards rushing late in the fourth quarter of this game on Monday Night Football. I think their defense has actually been all right. So if the offense can just be bad, just don't be historically incompetent, just be bad, I think they will have a chance to win this game. Do you think this is the end of Brissett if they lose this game?
Yeah. I said it to you. I think I said it to you. I said it to Pat when him and I were on Tuesday. Look, I don't want him starting in Jacksonville. I know no one. The 9:30 game is not like it's a standalone game, but it's not like your average standalone game. It's a standalone game.
You're in London, yeah.
I just don't want him to go and have his first start be in Wembley. So I think if this week it happens, there's also that weird podcast clip with Evan Lazard and friend of the show Alex Barth of the whole locker room mutiny thing that was deleted immediately off all socials. Like, the episode got wiped completely.
I saw that clip too before.
Yeah, like that whole clip came on and like it's that Twitter ablaze. Like, everyone's just like, "What's going on?" But the more and more it happens, it's just there's such like a high risk, high reward where it's like, hey, May's got the upside, but at the same time too, it's the offensive line's historically bad. Like, this offensive line is it's terrible. Like I said, Ken Wallace, IR. David Andrews, I don't know what's going to happen with him if it's not even for this year, but going forward, if he's a Patriot again, because I know he's playing next year, but he's in his 10th season and he's been banged up and he's had the blood clot issues in the past. Hopefully they're getting, and this feels weird to say because I was not a fan of his last year, but Viridian low back at tackle. You get Michael Jordan at the right tackle. You kick Onwenu back into guard because Onwenu at guard is better than a guard as a tackle. Nick Leverett, he is questionable, so we'll see, but he was fine under center last week. There was nothing crazy. It's just what happened. Basically, last week was a result of George Kittle being George Kittle, Fred Warner making an unbelievable play that only Fred Warner can make, and also putting Nick Bosa on top of a 4th-string waiver wire left tackle. You play with fire, you're going to get burned. That's what happened last week. This week, I'm going to go Miami just because I feel like for them, it's more about the get right moment where, it's like, oh, Mike McDaniel turns it around. You guys have your bye next week. Kind of that same vibe that Tennessee just had with you guys where, hey, they got, even though it was getting their first one, but you guys going 2-3 into the bye, it's like, okay, Miami could turn it around. 1-4, the panic alarm sets in. Patriots go 1-4. It's just, hey, one step closer to Calvin Banks or Will Campbell being in blue next year in Foxborough.
If the Dolphins lose this game, they will not win the division. I'm calling it. I told Danny, me and Danny were messaging on Twitter, and I think I told him if they lose all the games without Tua, the division race is over. Because, at that point, that's obvious. But if they lose this game, I'm calling it because they'll be 0-2 in the division. They will have lost one of the easier division games at New England. They've already lost a home game to the Bills. To make that game up, they now have to beat them in Buffalo.
Yep.
And they keep losing. Like, that Titans game was like a picture-perfect example of a game they could have won with Tua. And that was supposed to be one of the easier games on their schedule. If they can't win this game, what confidence do I have that they can win at the Colts, which is their next game after their bye? Like, what logic would I have that, oh, we couldn't win at New England, but we'll win at Indianapolis? Like, I just doesn't make any sense to me. So if they lose this game, and when you lose the Colts and the Titans games, you know that like those are AFC games. Like, those matter on the ledger. When they lost at Seattle, it wasn't that bad because it's like that's an NFC game. The Bills have to play the Seahawks too. It's not the worst thing in the world. But losing that Titans game, and now if they lose this game, they won't have the math to make it up. I'm not saying the season is over. Like, sure, they can like finesse their way to 9-8 or 10-7, just like they did in 2021 when they started the year 1-7 and they finished 9-8. They can absolutely do that with Tua coming back. But winning the division with Buffalo projected to win over 10 games and the Jets probably as well, I just don't see it. I don't think it's mathematically possible if they lose this weekend. So, yes, their season, there is part of me that does think they've had 4 straight winning seasons. The only other franchises in the NFL to do that are the Chiefs and the Bills. Like, this is the culture that Dolphins have built, for better or worse. They may have a low ceiling, but they're supposed to have a high floor. They're supposed to be the team that consistently gets the job done in September and October. And there's, I guess, part of me that I'm still clinging to that, because also they are healthier this week. It actually seems like New England is the more beat up team of the two.
Yeah, 100%.
Because of all the guys you guys don't have on defense. Even though the Dolphins did lose Jalen Phillips, which is devastating, heartbreaking. And by the way, because I've already heard one podcast already mention this, to those out there who think this injury is because he rushed back from the Achilles injury, you're fucking wrong, all right? He was top 10 in the NFL in pressure rate this year. He was kicking ass before he got hurt. There's a clip circulating online.
Isn't it a foot too, not an ankle?
It was, it was his knee. It was his,
it's a knee.
Jordan Poyer crashes into his knee on a run play when he's trying to make a tackle.
Look what happened to Rasheed Rice. It's the same thing.
Exactly. It's exactly like the Mahomes Rasheed Rice thing. It had nothing to do with the Achilles injury. Nothing. I've seen a few people recklessly speculate that already. They're dead wrong. It had nothing to do with it. It's just horrible, horrible luck for a really good guy. And it is going to hurt against New England, because Emmanuel Ogbah, who's been great, like once he got out of Vic Fangio's system, he's like back to the old Emmanuel Ogbah that he was a few years ago. Against the Patriots O-line, that matters. The Dolphins D-line, everyone made a big deal about us losing Christian Wilkins. Calais Campbell has been awesome. He's old. The concern is he won't sustain this over 16 games, sure. But he's been great in the first month of the season. I see no reason why he wouldn't be good in this game against the Patriots. And so I think their D-line is actually going to play pretty well. The problem is Chop Robinson, their first-round rookie, has done nothing so far. It is early. No one needs to freak out. But he's gotten no pressures. He's gotten no sacks. He's gotten, I guess he's gotten a few pressures, but a very small amount relative to the percentage of snaps he plays. And he's gotten abused in the run game. Like if I were New England, if I was Alex Van Pelt, my main game plan this weekend would be to run Antonio Gibson. And since I know Ramondre Stevenson's not
that's officially confirmed today.
Yeah. But by the way, I mean, props to him for just admitting that. Most coaches just wouldn't say anything and just wait till game day. Those of us that have Gibson on our fantasy teams, like I do, and where it's not a given that you start someone like Antonio Gibson before this week, I needed to know that information. That gives me the information I need to know I can start him.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Yeah,
Ramondre has the yips. Gibson's been fine. He's done his job. Austin Hooper's done fine. He's done his job. But at the end of the day, look, just Miami needs to win more than New England, and that's why I'm going with them.
I'll begrudgingly take Miami too because of the health situation. But if they lose, it's a wrap.
Carolina, Chicago. I was about to come on here and pump my chest and say Chicago -4. But did you know that Andy Dalton has never beat? There's 3 teams he's never beaten in his career: Carolina, Cincinnati, Chicago.
So the 3 teams he's played for.
Yeah, the 3 teams he's played for, even though he's played for Dallas and New Orleans too. But because Chicago is that team like the Jets, you know, they're going to win. Like, if we look at Chicago's track record this year, beat Tennessee. They lose to Houston in a close one, cover the 6.5 by a half a point. Thank you very much. Last week looked great against the Rams. DeAndre Swift, hell of a game. But then there's the games like the Colts game where the fan base has gone from, we want Shane Waldron fired, to, buddy, you're amazing. You've done this. You've earned your job. I can see this being a game because here's the thing. I'm going to pull it up because the Bears' schedule, these are games that they have to win. I don't know if you know what their schedule looks like, but they have Carolina this week. Then they go to London to play Jacksonville, Commanders, Cardinals, Patriots. Why I mention those games is because they're 2-2 right now. I think they have to go 3-2 if they want to make the playoffs.
Yeah, because they haven't, their division, all 6 of their division games are just brutal.
And their 2 non-division games in that time frame are versus Seattle and at San Francisco.
And then you got Vikings twice, Packers twice, Lions twice.
Yep, including the Lions on Thanksgiving as well. So This is the kind of game that the Bears have to win, but this is also the kind of game I could see them losing and that their fan base goes into a panic. I don't think that'll happen, though, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Carolina cover the 4.
Yeah, this is a hard one for me to call. I could see Carolina covering. I could see Carolina winning outright. I could see the Bears winning but not covering.
Yeah.
I think it's a hard call. I think that, I mean, look, all the data we have on the Panthers with Andy Dalton, I know it's only been 2 games, but I think until we see evidence to the contrary, we should view them as a good offense. That's what they've been 2 weeks in a row against the Raiders, against the Bengals. I know the Bengals defense is horrible, but still, like that's a start. You know,
Xavier Leggett's looked good too. He looked really good last week too. This touchdown as well.
He's coming on, and I did listen to a podcast. I think the reason why fans are upset with Shane Waldron is someone mentioned how in Seattle they had DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and JSN. But you never
JSN comments when he got hired by Chicago.
Yes, and you never saw one problem frequently in Seattle last year is you never really saw all 3 of them play well at once, despite having all this talent at receiver.
Now look at DJ Moore, who just signed his big contract.
And now you have DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Keenan Allen, and you're kind of having the same thing where Rome goes off in that 3rd game against the Colts, and he's been terrible every other game since then. So I'm going to pick Carolina on the spread. I'm going to be a chicken shit and not predict the game, but I'll take the Panthers in the 4th. They're not going to be in the Fab 5. Fab 5 went 5-0 last week, by the way. Yeah, I'll take the Panthers on the spread, but it's a coin flip.
So for me, I'm going to go Bears pull out the win, but this is that kind of game where Bears fans go, like they basically, you know, they don't win it easy. They don't win it easy. It's going to be a gritty, grinded out kind of football game. But this next football game, this is part of my little 5-5, I think. Jacksonville versus Indy.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, you know, the last time the Colts won in Jacksonville, but here's the thing. Here's the reasons why. I know Jacksonville's not looked good. You have a Colts team that's beaten the Bears and the Steelers the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Like we say, I know he's got hurt, but still, Anthony Richardson, EPA, bottom 5 in the league. I know Joe Flacco played and looked good. But from all the stuff with Jacksonville, you know, it's not dysfunctional. It's all the weird Doug Peterson quotes. This game screams this is a must-win game for the Jags. I'm sorry, you're going to London because if they lose, because even for them too, I know when they opted to take the later bye as well from when they come back from London. So obviously they play Chicago and New England in London, but after that, it is not easy for them either. So they're in a Chicago situation where it goes Packers, Eagles, which is Sunday Night Football, Vikings, Lions, bye week, Texans, Titans, Jets, Raiders, Titans. I know they have the Titans twice in there, but that 4-game stretch after New England, like, that's why these are games that you got to win now if you want to at least salvage your season. And here's the other thing, too. Like I say, I think the Colts have been playing a little bit above their pay grade. They looked good against the Steelers, but like we said, that was probably a Steelers letdown spot. This just screams, you know what? I think this is the game where Jacksonville gets the win. Yeah,
and as Griff alluded to at the start, the Jaguars have not lost to the Colts in Jacksonville
2013.
It's crazy. It's 10 years. It's unbelievable. Like all the even the years that the Jaguars went 1-15,
their one win
3-14. The one win was against the Colts, and then they go 3-14 the next year, and the one of the 3 wins was against the Colts. The other 2 were against the Dolphins and Bills, by the way. Both those teams had winning records, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
So the Jaguars, I'm with you. If I remember correctly from what I read, Jonathan Taylor's not going to play in this game. So that helps. That definitely makes it easier. It seems like I think at first they said Richardson was going to come back, but now it's more 50-50. Now it seems like it might be Flacco again. And I think the Jaguars, if the Jaguars lose this game, I think the only way they lose this game is if it's like players have quit on Doug Peterson, they just no show, and then Peterson gets fired like Monday morning. I think
but they were good against Houston last week too. That's why I think they'll win this one.
Yes, they put up a lot of heart. They were leading for most of that game. That game was in Houston. It wasn't even in Jacksonville. So because it seems like they still have some fight left, and look, for as bad, like we do this all the time in football, we overrate the island games. Like that Bills game was like horrifically bad. They lost. They got their asses kicked so thoroughly. But their other 3 games against the Dolphins, against the Browns, and against the Texans, all those games were razor close. All those games went down to the wire. So I tend to think that they do have some fight left in them, and they're going to win this game because they always win this game. And is the spread still at 2.5? You're not even getting the full 3?
No, it's 3 now.
Well, I would still take it. But yes, this is the first entry in the Big Rat Fab 5 as well. Jaguars, they got this. Jaguars going to win outright.
Let's go. We love to see it. Next up, I can't believe I forgot this one because as the time ticker go by, let's see what it is. Houston versus Buffalo. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. two things are going to happen here. One, this is a get-right game for the Buffalo Bills. Also, two, with no Khalil Shakir, I think this is a Keon Coleman breakout game. And I think for everyone last week with Buffalo, I know Buffalo's still pretty injured. I know Ed Oliver's also not going to be playing in this game as well. But I think this is the kind of game where we kind of see with Houston, even though Buffalo's banged up, they are you're basically playing a team that's better than you. You're playing a team that, you know what, is above your pay grade to where everyone's going to play this game. That's why I say with the whole Houston thing, because next week they play New England. But this is the kind of game where Buffalo, like, you know what, everyone's like, oh, what happened last week happened. Like, I was watching my wife and she's like, what's going on? And I'm just like, this is bound to happen because, you know, you had a hungry Baltimore team. Now you have Buffalo being like, hey, we just got embarrassed on national television. We're going to a team that everyone thinks is going to beat us. We're going to take care of business. Plus, Houston's wearing those weird H-Town uniforms, the baby blue ones. And you really think Bills Mafia is going to want them to lose to a team wearing that uniform? I don't think so. I'm serious with the Keon Coleman one, though.
This is to me is a very, very, very interesting game because if like those injuries matter, like Khalil Shakir is arguably the Bills' best receiver. Maybe not even arguably. Maybe he just is their best receiver. If you're not counting Kincaid,
I'd say consistent, most consistent.
Then Ed Oliver obviously is super important on defense. So like those injuries like are a big deal. However, the Texans, Joe Mixon, I believe, is officially ruled out for this game again. There was some hope that he might be able to come back. And the Texans' like best offensive performance so far, not coincidentally, was when Joe Mixon went off in the opener. So I do think that matters. But it does kind of feel like a changing of the guard moment. You know, this is like if Houston is as good as people say they are, they win this game because the Bills are beat up. So the Texans should have more talent and the game's in Houston and the whole dig stuff. If Houston is not ready for the moment, then this is a veteran, resilient Buffalo team that's been there, that knows how to win, that they're coming off a loss. They need the win. They know this is like looking big picture. This is a really big game in the AFC standings down the road. And they just find a way, even though they're not playing their best day because they don't have their most talent available. So I think it's a very good litmus test for Houston. I think if Houston's as good as people say they are, they'll win this game. If Bills win, that tells you that Houston is still not ready for the moment. And, you know, I'm biased. I hate the Bills. I really want the Bills to lose this game because the Dolphins don't play Houston until December. So they'll have time to like get themselves back together to get.
Thanks for making me feel better, pal.
For whatever reason, Houston's like playing the Bills, Jets, and Patriots like 3 out of the next 4 weeks. It's very strange. And the Dolphins
they played the Jets on Halloween night in the Amazon Prime spot.
Yeah, and then they play the Patriots next week or the week after.
Next week.
Yeah, so it's very strange. Like I don't know why you guys all play them right now. We don't play them until December.
Where the Patriots will be wearing these uniforms next Sunday.
The New Jerseys.
Oh, the Reds.
The Reds.
The retros. Yeah, I think this is more not a get right spot for the Bills, but it's kind of a spot where, you know, it's like, hey, put the panic button away more for the national media because the local media buys into this team. The local media knows what this team is made of. A bunch of them come on my timeline, apart from like the Joes and the Gregs. Joe's another Bills guy who I have on here. He's my OG Bills Mafia guy. And obviously Greg, very great insights and all that stuff. So that's why with Buffalo, it's kind of that game where everyone can kind of go, oh, Josh Allen just had a bad week last week, and he kind of can shake it off. Go on.
I was just going to say there's just something in my heart that something just hasn't felt right with Houston. You know, they didn't cover against the Bears. They got their asses kicked by the Vikings. They barely beat the Colts. They barely beat the Jaguars. Something just doesn't feel right, which I might be biased. I might be granted, I'm biased against Buffalo too, though, so it goes both ways. I can't help but like cling to my preseason take that the Texans are being a little overrated nationally. And I think they've been overrated in how they've played, and they haven't really been called out for it because the Vikings are 4-0 and they ended up winning all those other close games. There's just something in my heart of hearts that says they're just not ready, and Buffalo will find a way.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like we do this every year with some teams where it's like, oh, you're not this. Like, why aren't you playing like this? And then it's kind of like, hey, maybe don't put Super Bowl aspirations on a team who 2 years ago was in the basement of the NFL. Moving on to Cincinnati and Baltimore, for as bad as Cincinnati's defense has been, and I know Baltimore's looked really good the last couple weeks, don't you think this screams like a just Cincinnati bounce back because, you know, they need the game more? If I know they got their first win last week, but they can kind of show the world, hey, we are who people thought they were. When Griff came on to his podcast with Alex Lorenzo and picked them to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, that's the team we thought we were going to get. Because Baltimore, too, coming off what was a 2 big blowout wins in a row, so everyone's going to think, you know what, why is it 2.5 points? Baltimore should wipe the floor with them. And then Cincinnati ends up taking a close one. I know they've looked bad, but this is that spot where Cincinnati basically gets back on their high horse. Also, one thing I want to note, my 3-video parlay pick, Houston, Buffalo over 47.5 points.
Yeah, this is Cincinnati's season. Like, if they lose, they'll be 1-4. So they will be dead last in the AFC North, most likely, depending on, we'll see what happens with the Browns game. But
Can I tell you a quick fun fact about Zach Taylor?
What?
He's either finished first or fourth ever since he became Bengals head coach.
Which is hilarious, which is unbelievable. And the way this, like, if they lose this game, now they have to make up the game in Baltimore on the rematch. The same problem the Dolphins have by losing that Bills game in week 2. So they would be 1-4 on the season. For as much as we love them, for as much as we love their potential, their hype, their ceiling, all that stuff, when you're 1-4, it is damn hard to make the playoffs, much less like make a Super Bowl run. So this is their season. I guess if I had to pick, because I do think the Ravens are the outright better team, I do kind of foresee the Bengals win a super close game, maybe with like a game-winning field goal, and you leave the game kind of realizing, okay, the Bengals won today, but the Ravens are still the better team. The Bengals just had to win today to like save their season. So that's kind of what I would expect, like some sort of like 30-27 victory where the Bengals can temporarily stop the bleeding. But long term, we all know that Baltimore is still the true contender of the two. So yeah, that's what I'm going to pick.
Also, one other thing I didn't realize, I just looked it up because I had a feeling about it. Jacksonville's going to be wearing their retro jerseys on Sunday as well, just going back to that game. But yeah,
Jacksonville wipeout spot.
Yeah. But yeah, no, with Cincinnati, this is your season. This is the game that you have to show the world, hey, we go 1-4, it's over, it's done. But then you know what, 2-3 is a hell of a there's a big difference between 2-3 and 1-4. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Washington versus Cleveland. It's the same logic, but I need to see it from Cleveland, and I haven't seen it. Last week, it's like, hey, Deshaun Watson looked great. Not great, but like, he had a really good game against Vegas, but the rest of the team didn't show up. And then you have Washington coming off an amazing win against Arizona, back-to-back. Like, they've won 3 in a row, Giants, Bengals, Cardinals. There's something in me telling me that this is just the Washington letdown spot, where, once again, 3.5 points, but then Cleveland goes into DC and gets a win, where it's like another grimy, gritty football game. I feel like we're going to get a lot of grimy football games this weekend. There's not going to be a lot of like what we saw last night.
Well, it's kind of the top of the market for the Commanders, right? I mean, this is the most
high moment.
This is the most highly rated they've been all year. They're 3.5 point favorites. And similarly, this is the lowest point of the Browns market. I mean, I understand people have been critical of them, but they're 1-3, and they're now more than a field goal underdog to a team that most people thought would finish last in their division before the season started. So I'm with you. The Browns go at Philly next week, and despite my constant claims about how overrated Philly is, that's still a tough spot for Cleveland because
a coach gets fired game if whoever loses that game.
Yeah, so I think there's something in my gut just telling me that the Commanders' love is getting a little out of control. I'm not saying it's undeserved because Jaden Daniels has been great.
But they lose the game, you think they should win easily?
Yeah, I mean, because like, are they really going to finish the year like 14-3, like 13-4, even 11? Are they going to finish the year 11-6? Like, it just seems a little hard to believe. I understand their defense played well last week. Before last week, their defense was the worst defense in football statistically. Yep. The Bengals lit them up. The Bucs lit them up. Like, even more than the Bucs lit up the Falcons and the Eagles, they lit up the Commanders in week 1. And then the Giants didn't punt against them and just didn't have a kicker. So they had to go for it on every 4th down and had to go for 2 2-point conversions. That's the only reason they lost that game. So I need to see more. I know the Browns offense is terrible, but I need to see more from the Commanders defense before I believe that last week is the new normal. And so there's just, the Browns are the second oldest team in the league. There's a lot of veterans on there. And the other thing is the Commanders line has played very well. Their rookie left tackle, people have mentioned this. It wasn't just that Adam Peters hit on Jaden Daniels. They drafted a left tackle who's been starting as a rookie, and he's been awesome, apparently. He's like allowed no pressures all year. Okay, well, now he goes against Myles Garrett, like now.
Who had a bad game last week.
Yes, and now I think guys like Garrett are going to crash the pocket, and all of a sudden Jaden Daniels, who's had pretty good protection, might think, oh, shit, what the fuck? Then he might scramble a lot. You might get less of those deep throws that he was making. He might have less completion percentage and all these quick throws he's been making. So I'm going to take – look, it's hard to predict a Deshaun Watson-led football team to win a game because he's been that bad. But I am going to take Cleveland plus 3.5 in the Fab Five. Jaguars -3, Cleveland plus 3.5.
The autumn wind is a pirate blistering in from sea. With a rollicking song, he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash with a silver hat about his head and a blistering black mustache. He growls as he storms the country, a villain, big and bold. And the trees all shake and quiver and quake as he robs them of their gold. The autumn wind is a Raider.
Beautiful.
The great Steve Sable. I said this on Twitter months ago. Miguel was furious at me. They have not beaten them since 2019. I have never been so confident in this. Not even spread. Las Vegas Raiders money line. You're seriously telling me that the team that got away with a very bad win last week against the New York Jets team is just going to beat the Raiders just because of nothing? I'm not a big Raiders guy. We all know this.
Sure.
But when there are certain spots where certain teams own another team, you just do not ignore that. Las Vegas Raiders is a mega lock of the week. I'm not even going money line. I will go. So I think this is what my play is going to be. Jacksonville -3 over Houston Buffalo. Vegas on the money line. Last year, the spread was much higher in this game. The spread, I think, was like -4.5, -5. It's only -3 right now. Vegas is a team. Look, no Devontae Adams, I know. I don't know what Max Crosby's status is of now. But I'm sorry. I do not buy into Bo Nix. But Patrick Surtain could have a good game, but that's something I'm willing to sacrifice because even though he's not good, I will take Gardner Minshew over Bo Nix, pardon me. But like I said, the autumn wind is a pirate. I'm going Raiders.
I love it. I love it. I have nothing to add. I'm with you every step of the way. Raiders +3 is the third entrant in the Big Rat Fab 5 this week. Jaguars -3, Browns +3.5, Raiders +3. No one out there, look, whether we're right or wrong, there's no one out there. You should never bet on Bo Nix as a favorite until you see him play better. Because what they did last week is not sustainable. And if you want to back him as an underdog, 6-point underdog, Broncos have a good defense, they'll keep it close, I think that's logical. But I think you should pretty much always fade Bo Nix as a favorite for the time being until you see evidence in the future. By the way, Max Crosby did come back to practice today. And I think Patrick Graham is one of the better DCs in the NFL. I think the Raiders defense is doing okay despite mediocre talent. Their season-long stats don't look that great because they played Baltimore and they played Carolina in the desperation 0-2 spot, Andy Dalton coming in to save the season. I think the Raiders defense can actually be competent this year. And so nothing about the Broncos offense scares me. I do think the winning streak is real. Raiders +3. Let's do it.
It's as simple as that. I was trying to look up what their spread record was, but Denver right now, they have a better record against the spread because obviously there's that one against the Buccaneers they covered. San Francisco versus Arizona. This is the big rat rule of spread logic.
Yeah.
Arizona covers +7.5. San Francisco gets the win. I think the San Francisco team we saw against New England last week is a team we're going to get. I'm still high on Arizona. Danny and I both are as a potential playoff team, but I think with them, they're going to lose to the teams that are better than them, and they're going to beat the teams that they should beat. So with that, like I said, I think this is a potential fireworks game. The overs were sitting around 49, I believe 49.5. I'll confirm that when the ticker comes back. But like I said, Arizona covers, San Francisco win.
Kyler Murray, 17-5 against the spread on the road in his career as an underdog. But yeah,
49.5, by the way.
So yeah, I think the logic is sound. I think I've been a little let down by the Cardinals, but I think the criticism's getting a little out of control. They did beat the shit out of the Rams. They
almost the defense is just not good. That's just it.
Yeah, and look, they almost beat.
They're young. They're young. It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, and they had 2 close games against the Lions and the Bills, which are 2 of the better teams in the league. So
they covered against the Bills.
Yes, and last week was embarrassing. There's no other way to say it. They got destroyed at home by the Commanders. It was rough, but I think they've shown enough good in the other 3 games that I feel like people are digging their graves a little prematurely right now. Even if they lose this game, because it is San Fran, like I feel like there's something there. And yeah, I love it all the way. Love plus 7.5. Love backing Kyler Murray as a road underdog. Let's do it. On to the next one.
Seattle versus the New York Giants. I'm going to be short and sweet with this one too. I know Malik Neighbors is not playing in this game, but what the Seahawks just went through on Monday night against the Lions, they have a big back and forth game. No one believes in the New York Giants. I'm not picking the Giants to win. I'm not that stupid. But Giants at plus 7 seems like a bet that a lot of people are ignoring. Like I remember a couple of years ago on Thanksgiving when they were like plus 10.5 or plus 11 against the thing. Even too, one of our first Danny Dimes episodes in 2020, they were plus 11.5 against the Buccaneers, and they almost won the game outright.
Yep.
So I think the same thing happens here. The Giants cover the number, but the Seahawks ultimately pull out the win.
Yeah, I was going to say everything you said. They're my 4th entry into the Big Rat Fab 5. The Raiders plus 3, the Browns plus 3.5, the Jaguars minus 2.5, the Cardinals one I also like, but then this one was the key 4th one. The 5th one is technically the Falcons, which already happened. But I guess for the purposes of the show, 4 and 5 can be Giants plus 7 and Cardinals plus 7.5. I love it. Daniel Jones is great as a road underdog. Here, it's a crazy. I can't explain.
Burned me 3 years ago in New Orleans. I remember that. The Saints were minus 7.5, and the Giants won the game in overtime.
Outright, and they do this a lot. Like it's a few weeks ago, they were plus 6.5 at Cleveland, won the game outright again. Like they do this all the time when they're big dogs.
Plus 5.5 last week.
No Neighbors, no Singletary. Like, I understand how it looks. The Seahawks are missing guys, too. The Seahawks were missing, like, 4 starters on defense in that game. And the Seattle's traveling cross-country. The Giants are the more desperate team. The Giants also – this is not a small thing. Giants played on Thursday Night Football last week. So they got an extra 3 days while the Seahawks are on a short week. Like, that's a significant differential in terms of preparation. So, yeah, and look, the Giants have a bunch of guys – like, okay, no Neighbors. So Daniel Jones will have to rely on Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, these are the guys he was already relying on.
Bellinger.
Yeah, these are the guys he was already throwing to before Neighbors got there. It's not like these guys are new. It's not like you're trusting guys that he doesn't have a connection with, So I'm going to trust Dable. Daniel Jones, it's an insane – I don't know the exact number, but I heard it on a podcast, and it's fucking insane. He has like 27 touchdowns and 28 interceptions in the Meadowlands. And on the road – it's like 30 touchdowns and 19 interceptions. Like for whatever reason, just a much better quarterback on the road than he is at home. It is ridiculous. So yeah, I like the Giants plus 7. And another reason why I think we can feel good about this is that Seattle's not really a team that you can consistently trust to cover big spreads. They did it against your Patriots as -4 favorites. They did it against the Broncos in week 1. They pushed. That was also in Seattle, and they pushed against Bo Nix. So I like the Giants D-line here too. That's the last thing I'll say. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. I think against the Seahawks O-line, I think the Giants D-line has an advantage. And I think that's what will help keep the game lower scoring and close. Giants cover the 7.
There is one Seahawks offensive lineman that I do like, though. Charles Cross is really coming into his own there, the third year from Mississippi State. But yeah, like I still think the same thing too. I think this is the kind of game where the Giants, I don't know if they won outright, but plus 7 I think is just too big of a number. Moving on, Rams versus Packers. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. After what happened to the Packers last week, Packers -3 would be a pick I would make if I was making the Fab 5 on my own, because you have to trust them on the rebound. And like we said, like what you and I said last week when we were picking the Rams-Bears game, the team that we saw is better. Also, other thing too, with going back to the Commanders game, I believed with the Commanders and with the Cardinals, I just remember the stat. Big Cat said it on part of my take that teams who it's like something insane, like where if they win by 14 or more and lose by 14 or more, the team who loses by 14 or more is 62% the next week. Yeah. And meanwhile, the other one's there. So just fun little fact that comes to my head. This game, though, this is a Packers bounce back spot. I think they cover the 3, no problem. I think the Rams team, it's just they're too banged up. Packers have been pretty good. Last week was just a punch in the mouth moment for them. But like I said, the number's low because I think of what happened last week. But I think the Packers, I think, win this game by at least 4, like 4 to 7 points. Also, Side note of the Giants next week, Giants fan Jared, he'll be back here as him and I get you ready for week 6. And Big Rat will be here next Sunday night when Danny Dimes is once again in primetime, baby.
Unbelievable. And for those out there, Griff was also referring to the Cardinals 49ers game.
Yes.
49ers won by 17 last week. The Cardinals got murdered. Now, and the game's in San Francisco too. It's like, who?
One of my friends was there actually at the game, Commanders Cardinals, he was there for a bachelor party.
Oh, that's really sick. Like in Arizona? That's
yeah.
Good spot. Yeah, so in this game, I lean more with Griff's side on the Packers here. I do like respect like McVay and Stafford's ability to rebound from adversity themselves, but Green Bay needs the win too. Green Bay's been the better team. Green Bay, like historically, they know like the kind of scheme that the Rams are going to run on offense. So I feel like their defense, which has been average, but it's been better than the Rams defense, I feel like can like provide some schematic advantages since the Rams receiving group is so weak. The Rams have their bye next week. I would lean Green Bay here. I think it's close, but I would lean Green Bay.
Also, the Rams have, including the playoffs, the Rams have only beaten since moving to LA, they have only beaten the Packers once. That was in 2018. Besides that, they have since 2006, they've only beaten them 3 times.
And by the way, in that 2018, I believe the Packers muffed the punt, they muffed the punt like on a drive late in the game, and the Rams got the ball like on the 3-yard line. That's what it took to win that game.
Sunday Night Football, which there's a very sad fact about this game, that every October NBC Sunday Night Football game features one of these 2 teams, except for next week when it's Cincinnati, New York, because in 2 weeks we get Steelers versus Jets, and then in 3 weeks we get 49ers versus Cowboys. But this week it's Steelers, Cowboys. I'm looking forward to this game because, this game screams football. This game screams just old school, gritty football. But when all is said and done, I'm going to go with the quarterback and the team I've trusted more. And also, I'm going Pittsburgh. I just think, you know what? Pittsburgh's been playing better. They've been the more consistent team. Like even last week too, how Dallas, like we watched most of it. They looked okay against New York, but apart from Cleveland, which we kind of now know Cleveland's a little wonky, there hasn't been a game where you can look at the Cowboys and go, oh, hey, look at the Dallas Cowboys. Because then, look, they got their doors blown off by the Saints. They got killed by the Ravens. And then this week, too, in a prime spot in Pittsburgh, Sunday Night Football, you're going to hear Renegade a couple times, I think. I think you're going to hear that. But I'll say this, though. This is a game that if you like defensive football, this is for you. Even though no Micah – that's the other thing, too, with this game. No Micah Parsons, and I believe no DeMarcus Lawrence.
Correct. They're not going to come back until probably after their bye week.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I will say I'm really excited for this game because I think this game can go in either direction. I think it's going to be fun. This game is going to be a question of very rarely does a quarterback carry a team. I feel like we always talk about that on the show. Like the quarterbacks are usually getting overrated. When a quarterback has to carry a team like Mahomes is doing with the Chiefs right now, it usually doesn't look that great. It doesn't come with the gaudy numbers, the clean stats, because you don't have the receivers to give you the stats you need for you to put up 40 touchdowns and 4,000 passing yards, etc.
Yeah.
I feel like Pittsburgh has the better defense, clearly. I feel like and they have the home field advantage. I feel like if the Cowboys are going to win this game, it's because Dak is going to put on a clinic. Dak is going to consistently find Jake Ferguson in the middle of the zone defense, gaining 5-6 yards at a time, not having too many penalties, not turning the ball over, just clean execution start to finish. And I'm excited to see, can he do that? Because I'm not sure he can. The defense is too good. They're gonna bracket CeeDee Lamb the whole game. The Cowboys can't run the ball. The Steelers are great run defense right now, so that's gonna hurt Dallas's ability to move the ball. So, and normally you would just want to fade Justin Fields, but I don't know if this is the defense that will force Justin Fields into a 4-sack, 2-turnover performance. So for all those reasons, it seems like the Steelers should win this game. I'm just excited as a football fan. Can Dak Prescott be one of the few examples of carrying a team by just playing high execution football on the road for 60 minutes? And I'm very fascinated to see if he can do it. Ultimately, the Steelers will probably win. Here's a stat for everyone to watch out for, though. Justin Fields has never won a game in the NFL when the other team has scored 21 points. So that is the magic number for Dallas. That's the number that all of us watching that game, we have to track. Can they get to 21? If they get to 17 or 14 or 10, Pittsburgh's probably going to win. If they get to 21, it kind of goes to what we were talking about. Can Dak get enough touchdown drives, or is it going to be like 5 Brandon Aubrey field goals? I could see 10 combined field goals in this game with Brandon Aubrey and Chris Boswell.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put a score on this game. I'm going to say Pittsburgh wins 21-17. You know,
that sounds just about right.
You know, it's gritty. It's Big Ten football. It's not for the fan of heart, but for sickos like you and I, we're gonna love it.
Man, it's gonna be a great crowd. Like, I wish I could be there. Well,
that's why I'm saying Renegade. That's why I think Renegade's gonna play. For all those who don't know, it's a pump-up song for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And there's gonna be a bunch of Cowboys fans there too. Oh, that's gonna be a beautiful atmosphere.
That's why I say it's NFL personified. That's what this game is. And then Monday night we finish in Kansas City with the Saints taking on the Chiefs. Originally, I was going to be a little bitch boy and take Saints plus 5.5. I think this is the game the Saints get. I think this is a game they get. Look, last week's lot, like my dad, the Saints fan, like, look, I told him I'd pick the Falcons and he said that I was dead to him. But the way that they lost last week, they should have won that game. Look, because it took effectively a muff punt by Rashid Shaheed and Matthew Judon tipping a ball off of Derek Carr who effectively win the game. And with Kansas City, look, I know Jim Nantz and Tony Romo were really annoying about this when they're like, oh, all the hot takes are gone with Travis Kelce. Kelce only had a good game because he was their only option. And with the Saints team with a deep, here's the other thing too with the Saints. DeMario Davis, I don't know if he's playing or not, but last week was his first game missed due to injury in his career. I think he might be back this week. They did lose Willie Gay, but we'll see. This is the game though where the Saints win, but the national media doesn't pay a lick of attention to it. You know, it's the
what's wrong with the Chiefs?
What's wrong with the Chiefs? Are the Chiefs going to get Amari Cooper? Are the Chiefs going to go out and re-get Tyreek Hill? Which, by the way, I think is all stupid smoke. There's nothing to that because look, I think I heard it was Florio who said it. I think it's like 41 million is the dead cap hit for you guys.
They guaranteed Tyreek Hill's contract at the very end of the preseason for next year, right before the season started. It's not just this year; he has a guaranteed salary next year as well. So
that's a fireable offense if you trade it. Chris Greer's not that stupid.
And not just with the horrible dead cap hit. You're not even like much like how the Raiders are like not going to get a great first round pick for Devontae Adams. Like you're not going to get that great of a pick anyways. Like I just don't see the point. Why bother?
You're going to get less than what you gave up to get him in the first place.
Yes.
And look,
and be worse.
Everyone's going to say that with the Chiefs, kind of like what they did with the Patriots for years, where it's like, oh, you have to go out and get this. Oh, you can do this. The Rashee Rice thing is very weird just because he's on injured reserve now. No one knows what the full extent is. I'd be shocked if it was anything but a torn ACL. His mother's also a porch pirate. I don't know if you saw that. There was a woman on camera caught stealing stuff in a Mama Rice jersey, which not a good look. But the other reason with this too is the only way I think the Chiefs win is if Travis Kelce plays like Travis Kelce, but I can't trust Travis Kelce to be that Travis Kelce. That's the $1 million thing. Meanwhile, I can trust Rashid Shaheed to bounce back after 2 bad games. I can trust Alvin Kamara to continuing to play the way that he's been playing, also for my fantasy team. And here's the other thing, too. Derek Carr is playing a lot better this year with the Saints than he has last year. I know we had the whole thing last week with Clint Kubiak, Cynthia Freeland thing, but when it comes down to it, the Chiefs' offense is kind of handcuffed right now with Patrick. Because even last week, too, they weren't impressive against the Chargers. Like, there was not a win this year with the Chiefs where it's like, oh, hey, there was Isaiah Likely's foot being out week 1. There was the Cam Taylor-Britt pass interference week 2. There was the other pass interference week 3, followed by running a stretch run on 4th down. And then the Chargers last week with a depleted offensive line, which no Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt's going to show a big thing. So I want to see who Kansas City plays next week just because I'm genuinely curious about this. Because, look, it's in Arrowhead, too. Everyone's going to think Chiefs bounce back, no problem. They've been on the road for 2 games. Next week, the Kansas City Chiefs are on their bye week. So you know what? That's just going to add fuel to the fire of everyone going this, and this. But guess what? Hot take for week 7. They then go into San Francisco and beat a very hot 49ers team. Bookmark this. An hour and 24 minutes. An hour and 1 hour, 60-24. Bookmark.
Yes, I like that. They beat them in San Fran a few years ago, too.
They whopped them. I think it was like 45-24 or something like that.
And they were like 2-point dogs, and they still destroyed them. Yeah. So I think you hit the cap perfectly. on Monday Night Football about Travis Kelce, because one of the problems with Rashee Rice is down, so Mahomes is going to just elevate the other receivers. The problem with that logic is the Saints have really good cornerbacks. They have one of the best cornerback rooms in the NFL. Like Paulson Adebo is playing well, and Lattimore is back out there, and like Dennis Allen, historically with his time in New Orleans, he does like a really good job of coaching up the cornerbacks. That's like one of New Orleans' staples over the last few years. They defend receivers very, very well. So this to me is not the game where Xavier Worthy goes crazy, where Juju Smith-Schuster like puts up a bunch of great stats for the Chiefs. This is not the game for that, because the Saints are not the right opponent to have your secondary and tertiary and other receivers like go off. So, because I mean, you'll have like, what's that guy's name? Kool-Aid McKinstry, like just like locking down like Juju, like doing a slant route. So the way the Chiefs bounce back on offense is Kelce. And you kind of saw it was kind of cool in that Chargers game. It's like, oh shit, Rashee Rice is down. Kelce, it's time to start like playing well again. And like a snap of the fingers. It's just like, oh, sorry, Kelce, like Rashee Rice is hurt. We need to start really utilizing you more. And he just rises to the occasion. That was cool. But that's the problem. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take like for those of you out there who want to bet this game for the Chiefs bounce back, I wouldn't even bet the Chiefs. Bet Travis Kelce to have 100 receiving yards, because I think that's essentially the same bet. If you think the Chiefs win this game, it's because you think Kelce is going to like blow up and have his best game of the year on national television with Taylor Swift in the audience and all that stuff.
His brother.
Yes. And if that doesn't happen, if he just has like a 50, 40-yard performance, then yeah, I'm with Griff. I think the Saints are going to be very competitive against the Chiefs receivers to prevent Kansas City. Kansas City hasn't won by more than 7 points all year long. So like for them to cover 5.5 is asking a lot. Like that doesn't come easily for them.
Travis Kelce is also plus 145 to get into the end zone.
I like that too.
Travis Kelce to have 100, for him to have 100 plus receiving yards is plus 470. Him to get 60 yards is plus 106. So that's saying that the books are saying he's not going to have a good game. That's another reason to go for the Saints here.
Yeah, and that I was going to say, like, so yeah, those of you out there, like, no one bet Chiefs 5.5. Just bet those lines, like Griff was just telling you. Like, don't ever bet Chiefs 5.5. Just bet that instead. You'll get much better value.
Yeah, like when you see that, it's basically showing the books like don't have faith in it. Like Kareem Hunt and Alvin Kamara are the top touchdown scorers, but the Saints this year too. Again, like there's no team that's really, apart from the one Saquon Barkley moment, there's not really been a team that's had a significant running performance against them either. So to rely on the running game, like I said, it's going to take 15 and 87 to be historic like they were in the playoffs last year. Yeah, but I still stand by my take with Travis Kelce. I said, don't draft him in fantasy. I said, though, come playoff time, he's going to show us all this to where everyone's going to go, where was this last year? But there's also something that stands out to me about this Chiefs team this year. Do you remember the preview show when you said that the mistakes last year were, it is what it is. This year, though, if they're going for 3 again, everyone's like, it's this, they can get over the mistakes, get over the hump. It's not the same, because guess what? Rashee Rice probably not going to be back this year. Hollywood Brown as well, probably not going to play at all this year with that really weird injury with his shoulder in the preseason. So basically the Chiefs, if you can blanket 87, you are going to neutralize them and you are going to beat them. And I still stand on my take with this, but the Kansas City Chiefs of now are giving me New England Patriots of 2019.
Yeah, they are a defensive team. Like it feels weird. It feels strange to say. They are a defensive first team. They have been 2 years in a row now. Like, that's who they are.
The only question I have with that is, do you think Steve Spagnuolo ever gets another sniff at a head coaching gig, or do you think he's comfortable where he is?
I think he will, because specifically there will be teams that see taking him as a way to hurt Kansas City, and they're getting one of the few guys that they think might have a chance at defending against Kansas City. So for that reason, I think he will get another chance, because everyone, kind of like how like Stuckey from the Action Network, one of my favorite betting analysts, he tweeted as a joke after the Rashee Rice injury, the entire NFL should get together and agree not to trade the Chiefs a wide receiver. Like everyone just like, let's not help them out. Similarly, I think that's how the NFL sees a way to weaken Kansas City. Take away Spagnuolo, that'll hurt their defense. And then the guy you hire as your head coach when you play Kansas City will give you a good chance at slowing them down, because he was with them for so long. So I do think for that reason, I do think eventually he'll get another chance.
Yeah, I also just go on my whole take about them winning in San Francisco, because like I'm going to look it up again just because, like, I know I'm looking up things on the fly. It's what I do here, and also BigRat and I got to wrap up very soon. But, like, how San Francisco this week, you know, they play Arizona. They probably win that. Next week, too. Where is San Francisco? Oh, San Francisco, Thursday night in Seattle, which is another game where San Francisco's gone up to Seattle in recent years and just dog walked them. There's some games out there that have not been close.
Gino has never beaten them.
Yeah. Sure. So that's where the logic comes in then, to where off the bye, everyone, you know, oh, we don't know about Kansas City. And then we see a classic 15 game in 2 weeks that leave in the Bay Area.
Yep.
With number 12 in the booth, by the way, I believe that's going to be the Fox signature game of the week.
That'll be the Brady game.
Yeah.
Brady's just been falling around Dallas until he got the Bucs game last week.
That's the other reason why I bet the Bucs. That's why I was on the Bucs so heavy last week.
That was a great. I mean, yeah, that was. I told my brother that was the easiest spread bet that we'll have all year long. Was that Bucs game? It was never in danger. The first drive of the game, you knew you were good.
Exactly. But anyway, guys, you know, Big Rats. Actually, you know what? For the people, say it one more time. What is your Fab Five for this week?
All right, last time. So for the Fab Five this week, again, if we're being fair, one of the 5 was the Falcons, which already cashed. So in order, Falcons, Browns plus 3.5, Raiders plus 3, Giants plus 7, Cardinals plus 7.5. And then if we're not going to include the Falcons, if we have to include a 5th one on Sunday specifically, Jaguars minus 3. So one last time, Browns plus 3.5, Raiders plus 3, Giants plus 7, Cardinals plus 7.5, Jaguars minus 3. That's the Fab Five.
And my 3-teamer is Buffalo, Houston over 47.5 points, Jacksonville minus 3, Raiders on the money line. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it from us. We hopefully can win some money this week. Hopefully you win some money too. I'm Griff. That's Big Rat. We'll be back next week for more YWC football talk.